Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping yet again over to a big Imperial Stout from Anchorage Brewing Company, based in Anchorage, Alaska. This specific beer is called Darkest Hour. It clocks in at 13% ABV. It was aged for 1 year in double oak Woodford Reserve barrels, and it also has added alder-smoked malt into the malt bill. So I'm expecting this all to be a very big, intensely flavored beer, quite different than your average Imperial Stout. So let's get into the label art here. They have, it's probably very hard to see, it's quite dark, but wolves going after what looks like a deer. That is kind of the art label on there, but it looks really, really neat. They always have great artwork. As per usual, we got a nice wax dipped bottle. This one a dark green, so we're just gonna score all the way underneath that cap, and then we will be able to get leverage under here to get this cap off. All right, so what I'm thinking is this might have some elements in common with, say, a German Rauch beer, smoke beer, where they use smoked malts, but it'll be just a question of the intensity. I might also anticipate that it's got some kind of Islay Scotch type vibes. Given the smoked malts, it might kind of put me in mind of peated malts that are used for Islay Scotch. But we'll see when we get in here. I'm just checking for any small residual wax. Nope, just one tiny piece. So let's get this poured right in the old stout glass here. I'm going to be aggressive here. I know it's obviously super thick, very, very dark. Trying to give this a good chance to form a head here. I've had several that have just been too thick and too active with carbonation to really hold their heads after pouring. So I'm trying to give this one the best chance that I can. All right. Ooh, wow, that is a pungent aroma coming off of this beer. Wow, pungent, hugely pungent. So visually, pitch black. Absolutely pitch black as expected. Did form quite a nice head. It is pretty active in terms of carbonation, but it's mostly really, really tiny bubbles. I think that this one actually is going to hold a better head than the last of these big, heavy Imperial Stouts I've poured. Looks quite nice. Get right up for a sniff. Yeah. You can really smell the barrels on this. That is intense whiskey. And that smoked malt really comes through as well. And obviously a ton of richly, darkly roasted malts. 13%, it's got a lot in there. But that aroma coming off of the barrels in tandem with the alder smoked malts is really just such a pungent, huge, dominant aroma that it's kind of drowning out some of the underlying roastiness and kind of earthiness you would normally get off of a beer like this. So I'm sure it'll be present in the flavor profile, but on the aroma, it's all barrel and smoked malts. Very big, very bold, very pungent. It smells amazing. It's really equal parts, that barrel and that smoked malt. It smells fantastic. So head did settle down. Looks like it's sticking around pretty well. Let's jump right in and see what this one's about. Ooh, that's a big, big, bold beer. So this reminds me of several different things. So first, before we get into the flavor profile, which is huge and absolutely delicious, let's talk about the texture. The body on this feels a true medium heavy. It's 13%. Maybe you would think it would feel a little heavier, but it's a big, robust medium heavy. Doesn't feel heavy to me, but it's definitely medium heavy. Mouthfeel on this, there is a lot of resistance. The mouthfeel maybe not quite as resistant as I expected for 13%, but it still is a resistant beer. It's thick, there's a lot of malts in it. You could see how thick it was when I poured it. So it's texturally more or less where I expected for this beer style in this ABV range. So, the flavor profile. Even though it was all smoked malt and barrels on the nose, as soon as you swallow, really what I get hit with first was that big, intense, deeply roasted underpinning of this malt. So It wasn't even this alderwood smoked malt that came through. It's that classic flavor that I have come to expect and love from a big Imperial Anchorage Stout. Very big, very roasty, very dark, tons of layers of complexity, bit of char, bit of earth. Aside from that, absolutely the barrels come through loud and clear, as does that smoked malt. But everything here is working perfectly in balance. There's nothing really trying to take front center stage attention on this one. It is really harmoniously created here. So what it actually reminds me of is a little bit of like if you were to cross Scottish wee heavy that often use smoked malts with an Imperial Stout. That's kind of what this beer puts me most in mind of. So it's kind of got two personalities here. Classic Imperial Stout, and yeah, the barrel aging is always nice, but that alder smoked malt, that is a clever twist that you don't see in most Imperial Stouts. And it really makes for a nice, very big, unique, and intense Imperial Stout drinking experience. So absolutely phenomenal. I really, really like this. I'm gonna jump back in for a second sip, let everything re-intensify, then we'll talk about the finish. This is just another top tier stout from Anchorage. That's all I can say at this point. Phenomenal. Yeah, it's a big, medium, heavy body. Good resistant mouthfeel. It's that deep, richly roasted malt first. And even within that first second, the alderwood smoked malt really comes into play as well. So you're getting that normal roastiness, that richness, that char. You're also getting this smoked quality to it that really does put me in mind of a wee heavy or a Scotch ale. Big, 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 bold flavors. Barrel, absolutely fantastic too. And same thing as I got on first sip, it is just perfectly balanced. The normal, standard, deeply roasted malts, the smoked malts, and the barrel, equivalent voicing. It is just a masterpiece in balancing, especially with these big, bold flavors like this. Absolutely phenomenal. So the finish on this one. This is one of those big, wet to the end finishes on the stout. And it's big, bold, in-your-face, pungent flavors. And yeah, it's an extremely long finish. Very, very long finish with lingering smoked malt, that earthiness and that char from the other malts and the barrels. They're all in there, and it's still equal parts, just like you get when you first swallow. It's equal parts on the end of the finish, and it lingers long, long, long after each sip. I would say if I were to not have another sip for another 2-3 minutes still sitting here, I would expect to still taste the prior sip. It is extremely long, very pungent, very, very pungent indeed. But this is just another classic example of why Anchorage is just one of the top stout masters in the game for my money. Unbelievably good beer. Very interesting beer. Not something you get every day, but I absolutely love it. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, come up with my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Anchorage Brewing Company's Darkest Hour, an Imperial Stout that was aged for 1 year in Woodford Reserve barrels and also had added alder smoked malts. 13% ABV on this one. Anchorage Brewing Company, of course, based in Anchorage, Alaska. So this beer, I'm not going to go through every category because it almost got a perfect score in all of them. It only got 2 non-perfect scores in 2 categories. That was body and mouthfeel. Both of them, it got an 8. So well above average. It wasn't quite as heavy as I expected for 13%, and it wasn't quite as resistant as I expected for 13%, but still well above average for its range. Absolutely delicious beer. This was a big, bold, pungent, flavorful beer. Tons of roasty edge from the malt, tons of underpinnings of char, a classic Anchorage Imperial Stout malt character, then that added alderwood smoked malt. It could have easily gone overboard, but the balance on this was absolutely perfect. The barrel too, a really good barrel choice. and left in for the right amount of time. Everything in this beer, for my money, was all about the balance of what they did with it. And that's hard to do with those big, bold, pungent flavors. They absolutely pulled it off. It seems with every new stout I try from Anchorage, they just re-solidify for me why I think they are currently probably the overall top brewer in the country. Certainly one of the absolute stout masters. This was just another tremendously well done beer. I would say this is world class. A very unique beer. You don't get a ton of beers like this with the smoked malts. Kind of bridged the gap between a few different styles, but just as big and bold and flavorful and delicious as any of their other offerings. If you like those kind of big, bold beers, this is absolutely another one I would highly recommend from Anchorage Brewing Company. Total score, 96 out of 100. That's just about as good as it gets. It lost 2 points in 2 categories. That's it. And it only missed, top marks in both of those by just a thin margin. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit the bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.